Hey, today is a video about this taking notes. So a big part of being a good wave student is taking down good notes so you know what's going to be coming up ahead on your tests and quizzes and summarizing what is going through your lesson. So this is going to be a video where I actually work through a sample lesson so you get to see what's going on and how I would take notes. So the first thing we need to discuss is what are good notes? Good notes are summarized. Now, the opposite of summarized would be writing every word down. So writing down every word you see on the screen. So I want to emphasize that good notes doesn't mean that I want you writing every single thing down, because then you're just writing and you're not really thinking about what you're writing about. So the next one is good notes should be organized. Notes have a structure. They should have, and the structure helps you understand how the lessons are organized. Now, the opposite of structure would be random or unstructured. Like we just write down little facts here and there about different things we see in the lesson. It's hard to know what to take notes on when we don't have a structure, and it's really hard to learn. The last part is kind of going without saying, but clean. It's hard to have good quality notes if you can't read what's on the page. So make sure that your work is not messy or hard to read when you write it out by hand. So here are the things that I look for in the wave slides when I'm working through these notes. So the first thing is a title and lesson number. The lesson that you're going to see today is dividing rational numbers, but the structure is going to be the same for most wave lessons. So the content wasn't as important, but everyone has a title. And then in these lessons, there's slides, there's objectives, there's bolded vocabulary, there's examples, and there's videos. Videos I don't take, well, I might take notes on, but the main three things that I put in my notes are the objectives, the bolded vocabulary, and the examples. So why don't we go ahead and get into it? This is our lesson on dividing rational numbers. So the first thing I notice is here's my title, here's a number, and then here's the title. I'm definitely writing that down in my notes. So continuing on down, here's a nice opening example about a scenario. This is a nice opening example. However, this probably isn't something I'm writing in my notes because it's not crucial to what I'm right now. It's not crucial to this slide of what was going on in the lesson. The crucial part I really look on in the first slide are the objectives. This tells me what I'm going to be learning about in the lesson. So it tells me I'm going to be multiplying rational numbers and dividing rational numbers. So let's see what it looked like when I wrote that out. Slide one, it really is. Those are only two things I wrote down: objectives, multiplying, and dividing rational numbers. So, on to slide two. Slide two, I'm looking, okay, my title. My title of slide two, honestly, I would just probably say slide two. But let's see the highlights of what slide two has to offer. I see a couple of bolded words here. Bolded words are really important vocabulary that I'll probably see on my assignments, my quizzes, and my tests. So I'm definitely going through and I'm summarizing or maybe coming up with my own version of how these would go, and then I can also reference that against they write them off to the side as well too. These vocab words seem to be followed by an example. This example shows what the commutative property looks like in an example and what the associative property looks like in an example. So I would definitely take notes on that. Let's see what that would look like in my notes. So down to slide two, commutative property. There's my example there, my summarization or my paraphrasing. There's my paraphrasing for associative. And then here's my handwritten notes on that, just like that. So then we're moving even further down slide two. This is a long one. I have another two bolded words: multiplicative inverse and reciprocal. So I'm probably going to be writing those down because I always write down my bolded words. They definitely come up later. And then after the bolded words, they give me an example. So in my notes, you can definitely see there are my two bolded words: multiplicative inverse, reciprocal, and then there's my example. So continue on down. Here's our last feature of slide 2. The last feature of slide 2 is my last bolded word, distributed property. So definitely writing down that vocab term. And then here's an example of what distributed property would look like. So I'm definitely highlighting those features inside my notes. There's the bolded word that they had. And then here's the example that I saw. I really like that example. So I wrote down all the steps. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On to the next slide. We're almost halfway through. Actually, we're more than halfway. That was a really long slide. Title of this slide would just simply be slide 3. So I'm looking at, and this one's called use different methods to solve. So method is like an example. So we have a problem, and then here's method 1. And then down below it is method 2. So those two examples are something I would definitely write in my notes. So here's method 1, here's method 2. I work for that. And then on the bottom of each slide, we can see I've reached the end by that purple banner. Slide number 4. Slide number 4 is properties of multiplication and division. Continuing down, there's a nice example. There's a nice example. Here's my original problem. This is something I'm definitely going to try out or write out in my notes. Because there's the original problem. There is step 1. There is step 2, step 3, step 4. I am definitely writing down the original problem with all 4 steps. So let's see what that would look like. There's my original problem with step 1, 2, 3, and 4. That where I think I added a step. Yep. But that's definitely what I would highlight from slide 4. And lastly, slide 5. This is probably the last slide I would take notes on. And I'll explain what slide 6 would have. So here's an example problem, and it's actually a practice problem. So I tried that out on my own, and then I double checked it with this step-by-step solution. So I would definitely be taking notes on that. So that is what that would look like. And then afterwards, they give me an example problem to try on my own without showing me the steps. So there's the problem. And I would definitely try out that problem on my own to see how well I understand the concept. And lastly, slide 6, there is on the last slide, there's usually not a lot of new notes to take because the last slide is a summary. We have our lesson objectives, so the things we've learned in a lesson. So I'd probably double check and make sure I have that written down. There's a vocabulary. There's some more summary, so I'd make sure I have most of these examples written. And then here's a review guide. Then it's telling me I'm all done. I'm ready for the assignment. So please let me know if you ever have any questions. I'm always here to help, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation on how to take good notes in Wave.